Of those are present in the case, then I think there should be a presumption of 50-50.
So here's an example of a con artist like Judge Anthony telling on himself. Judge Anthony says he was a lawyer for 15 years. He was a judge for 5 years, and only at around the time he retired, because he had to retire to deal with his own divorce, where he was committing adultery with some rich woman in his hometown, according to one of my followers. He had to go deal with that. He said, I never knew how bad divorce was until I had to go through it myself. He was a family law attorney for 15 years, then a judge for 5 years, and he didn't think divorce was bad until afterward. That just proves what an incompetent attorney and incompetent judge he was. And you never ever see Judge Anthony talk about how many dads he gave 50-50, or how much he fought for custody for dads, or fought for 50-50 when he was a lawyer. In this video, somebody says 50-50 is always the best for the kids, which I don't agree with, because all the statistics say kids do better when the dad's in the home full time. There really should be a presumption of full custody to the fathers. But Judge Anthony won't even agree that 50-50 is cool unless you, first of all, prove that there's no abuse, there's no mental illness, there hasn't been a gap of time in not seeing the kids, which an alienator can withhold the child for a year, or bully, or control. See, Judge Anthony talks about narcissism all the time in order to hook you guys in, because so many people suffer from narc abuse. That's the hook to get you in. Hey, I care about you, victims of narcissism. And then he turns around and says, well, you can't have 50-50 if the parent didn't see the kid for a year or more. What if the parent moved away? What if a parent withheld the child from the other parent? What if let's say a custodial mom, which happens a lot, disappears in the Underground Railroad for mothers, where they can hide in a shelter and lie about domestic violence? What if she gets a bogus restraining order against the dad, and the dad can't afford the DV treatment and the mental health evaluation, all the requirements of the DV order? Judge Anthony doesn't even think of that. What does he do? He goes to the typical radical feminist man-hating prejudices. And notice, he says, well, whoa, wait a minute. Don't start talking about 50-50. We got to prove that the dad's not a monster like dads usually are, that the dad has been around. The dad has to overprove himself, because 90% of the time, the mothers get custody. So Judge Anthony is saying, don't give the dad 50-50. See, when we talk about, problems with racism and bigotry, or women talk about chauvinism or misogyny, we're not usually talking about somebody just straight out abusing somebody in public, or we don't have restaurants anymore that says whites only. So most of the corrupt stuff and people's bigotry is shown in subtle ways, and so a lot of people don't see it. It's in tangible ways, like a black dude who has cornrows. He, every few days there's somebody, he's about to walk by a woman and she clutches her purse, or a black dude is just walking by innocently and he looks and he sees white people rushing to lock their doors or something. That's the type of stuff that is the subtle, aggravating things that people don't see and don't talk about. And then people will say, I don't see any racism in the world and stuff. Well, you got to talk to somebody about their personal experience. Now, a lot of people overhype those things like that. Like women overhype, they're victims all the time, and because they got wounds from their dad or the stepdad who molested them, or they just have this perception that women don't make as much money as men, and that's a total farce that people spit out all the time. But some of the real, more subtle things are the intangible things, okay? And Judge Anthony is showing that he has those intangible bigotries toward men. So since mothers have custody, and it's almost assumed the mother's going to get custody, and the judge's typical prejudices in the Jim Crow courts, and the new Jim Crow is anti-father, radical feminist bigotry, Judge Anthony is saying, somebody says 50-50 is always in, whoa, wait a minute, don't start talking about 50-50. It's just, bigotry is bigotry. You have sexist bigotry, racial bigotry, bigotry toward cultures and ethnicities and just people who are different. And, fresh out of slavery or out of Jim Crow laws, black people were saying, hey, we want our rights to have guns too. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. That constitutional right was for white people. We're not going to rush and just hand over guns to you guys because you'll turn around and kill us all for enslaving you or something. People will talk about equality and fairness, but then when you start saying, we want the same things that you got, whoa, wait a minute. So a dad is saying 50-50 is always good, and Judge Anthony says, whoa, wait a minute. Because he's still got the culture is entrenched in him. You expect a Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard judge in the Jim Crow South to suddenly, when Brown versus Board of Education happens and black people are allowed to have equal access to everything and separate but equal is gone out the door, you think that Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard Dragon is all of a sudden going to be a fair judge in the criminal courts? No. You think Judge Anthony is, after 20 years of indoctrination and now that he is out here hustling people at $750 an hour, you think that all of a sudden everything's honky-dory with him? No, he shows his true colors. And he wants you to pay $750 an hour to talk to him. And almost everybody I talked to said that they were disappointed. He pulled them in with this narcissism victimhood and like, oh my God, somebody who actually cares. And he's a judge and he has this title, judge. We all know that there's people who are psychologists. There's a parenting evaluator. Google Seattle Times, Stuart Greenberg, Stuart, Greenberg, Green, and then Berg is Berg. He was the #1 parenting evaluator in the entire greater Seattle area for 20 years. He was a nationally renowned forensic specialist on child abuse criminal cases. Psychologist in Seattle. He was arrested for voyeurism because he was secretly videotaping women and children in his office bathroom and videotaping himself enjoying the videos. And then when he got out on bail, he killed himself and left a note saying, I've ruined so many lives. So the #1 pinnacle of all, the epitome, the superstar, the Hall of Famer for 20 years in King and Snohomish County. That's the Everett, naval-based town of Everett, Washington, and Seattle, Washington is in King County. He was the #1 parenting evaluator. He actually married somebody who was a family law commissioner and became a judge. So it's all in the family. All these people know each other. They all, go to the same cocktail parties and wife swapping parties and all that, cocaine parties, literally. And so Stuart Greenberg had accolades up the yin yang. It doesn't matter his title and his degree. He was still a sexually deviant pervert. So just because Judge Anthony has a title doesn't mean jack squat. And we know there's a lot of corrupt judges out there. So just pay attention and listen carefully and look at what he's saying. Oh, you better hurry up and you better qualify and we better make sure that you don't have. When you go to a criminal court and you're accused of, let's say, assault, well, you need to prove that you're not violent, you don't have an anger problem, and you didn't swing on this person, you don't have a history of beating up people. You don't assume guilty attributes of a criminal defendant. You assume they're innocent till proven guilty. In Judge Anthony's mind, you're assumed to be guilty of all these things until proven innocent of all these things. But what is the United States, and Judge Anthony is showing how incompetent these judges are. Supposedly Judge Anthony is all down and you see him dancing and shaking his thing when a dad gets custody or somebody gets custody in his testimonials. But why is he sitting here talking like you're guilty and you're proven innocent? You gotta prove this stuff. And why is he saying all these we gotta make sure there's no abuse? How do you determine abuse in a family court case? Well, preponderance of evidence. You don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And people lie, and a judge who's usually a bigoted radical feminist who goes to judicial seminars and they teach them with Violence Against Women Act money, spending millions of dollars having all these radical feminist speakers saying men are bad, women are good, women are victims, men are abusive, just in case, you better take the kids away from the dad, just in case. That's preponderance of evidence. And Judge Anthony is saying, well, if there's a finding of abuse, then you can't have 50-50. And countless judges, bar associations, and other people have, Divorce Corp, you watch that. Other people have printed that women lie about that stuff all the time. But Troxel versus Granville says, we assume that fit parents act in the best interest of children. You're innocent of being a bad parent until proven guilty. But 50-50 laws won't change prejudicial judge's heart. I just want to make this note while I'm looking at 50-50 videos how Judge Anthony told on himself.